Concept of user interface UI. In this video, we are going to see about the concept of user interface UI. Concept of user interface UI. Definition. Visual part of computer application or operating system through which a user interacts with a computer or a software. It determines how commands are given to the computer or the program and how information is displayed on the screen. Principles of user interface. The principle of user profiling, the principle of metaphor, the principle of feature exposure, the principle of coherence, the principle of state visualization, the principle of safety, the principle of shortcuts, the principle of focus, the principle of grammar, the principle of user testing, the principle of context, the principle of helping. Types of user interfaces. The user interfaces can be classified into the following categories: common language-based interfaces, menu-based interfaces, direct manipulation interfaces. Classification of user interface. In this video, we are going to see about classification of user interfaces. Command language-based interface. A source language composed chiefly of a set of commands or operators used especially for communicating with the operating system of a computer. The user must know the machine and program-specific instructions or codes. This type of user interface is easier to develop. However, command language-based interfaces suffer from several drawbacks. Usually, this type of interfaces are difficult to learn and require the user to memorize a set of primitive commands. Menu-based interfaces. An important advantage of a menu-based interface over a command language-based interfaces is that a menu-based interfaces does not require the user to remember the exact syntax of the commands. It is based on recognition of the command names rather than recollecting it. A major challenge in the design of a menu-based interface is to structure a large number of menu choices into manageable forms. Some of the techniques available to structure a large number of menu items: scrolling menu, walking menu, hierarchical menu. Direct manipulation interfaces. Direct manipulation interfaces to the user in the form of visual models. For this reason, direct manipulation interfaces are sometimes called as iconic interfaces. Characteristics of user interface. In this video, we are going to see about characteristics of user interface. Important characteristics of good user interface are: speed of learning, speed of use, speed of recall, error prevention, aesthetic and attractive, consistency, feedback, support for multiple skill levels, error recovery, user guidance and online help, speed of learning. A good user interface should be easy to learn. Speed of learning is hampered by complex syntax and semantics of the command issue procedures. A good interface should not require its users to memorize commands. Neither should the user be asked to remember information from one screen to another while performing various tasks using the interface. speed of use. Speed of use of a user interface can be determined by the time and user effort necessary to initiate and execute different commands. Speed of recall. Once users learn how to use an interface, the speed with which they can recall the command issue procedures should be maximized. This characteristic is very important for intermittent users. Error prevention. A good user interface should minimize the scope of committing errors while initiating different commands. The error rate of an interface can be easily determined by monitoring the errors committed by an average user while using the interfaces. Aesthetic and attractive. A good user interface should be attractive to use. An attractive user interface catches user attention and fancy. In this respect, graphic-based user interfaces have a definite advantages over text-based interfaces. Consistency. The commands supported by a user interface should be consistent. The basic purpose of consistency is to allow users to generalize their knowledge about the aspects of the interface from one part to another. Thus, consistency facilitates speed of learning, speed of recall, and also helps in reduction of error rates. Feedback. If any user request takes more than few seconds to process, the user should be informed about the state of the processing of his request. In the absence of response from the computer for a long time, a novice user might even start recovery or shut down procedures in panic. If required, the user should be periodically informed about the progress made in processing his command. Support for multiple skill levels. A good user interface should support multiple levels of sophistication of command issue procedure for different categories of users. This is necessary because users with different levels of experience in using an application prefer different types of user interface. User guidance and online help. Users seek guidance and online help when they either forget a command or are unaware of some features of the software. Whenever users need guidance or seek help from the system, they should be provided with appropriate guidance and help. Advantages and disadvantages of user interface. In this video, we are going to see about advantages and disadvantages of user interface. Advantages of UI. An easier-to-use interface enables users to learn the system quickly and use it efficiently. Very flexible with the use of switches, that is options. Good for expert users, can quickly access commands. Uses the fewest system resources. Disadvantages of UI. Requires the user to learn complex commands or language. Not very good for novice users. Command line interface applications. System administration. Engineering application. Scientific application. Ideal for visually impaired users. Applications of user interfaces. In this video, we are going to see about applications of user interface. Applications of user interfaces. Interface elements on demand. Link to sign up page from the login page. Specialized control. Interface elements on demand. The more controls you display on the screen at any time, the more time your users will have to spend figuring out how to use your interface. When there is less choice, the available functions become more apparent and are easier to scan. Simplifying an interface is not easy though, especially if you don't want to limit the app's functionality. Link to sign up page from the login page. Some people who have not yet signed up to your application will inevitably end up on the login page. They likely want to try out your application but can't find the registration page in a hurry. Perhaps they have tried accessing a feature that's only available on registered users. Specialized control. It is important to select the right interface controls for the situation. Different situations can be handled in different ways, and certain controls are better at their intended task than others. Interface design steps. In this video, we are going to see about interface design steps. Interface design is an iterative process in which each design process occurs more than once. Each time the design step gets elaborated in more detail. Following are the commonly used interface design steps. During the interface analysis step, define interface objects and corresponding actions or operations. Define the major events in the interface. These events depict the user actions. Finally, model these events. Analyzes how the interface will look like from user's point of view. Identify how the user understands the interface with the information provided along with it. While designing the interface, the designer has to follow golden rules, model the interface, analyze the working environment. Applications of interface design steps. In this video, we are going to see about applications of interface design steps. Applications of interface design steps. The first step in any interface design is to identify all the necessary objects and corresponding action. The use cases are used for this purpose. The use case description is passed and the nouns and verbs from this description is identified. The nouns correspond to objects and verbs correspond to actions. Thus, the list of objects is prepared. There are three types of objects: target object, source object, application object. Target object. The target object is an object in which some object can be merged. Source object. The source object is an object which can be dragged and dropped to some other object. Application object. The object which represents the application-specific data. Example: online student registration. The user has to fill up an online registration form. In this form, he has to submit the student information and then has to select the courses which she or he wants to adopt. Then the timetable of the corresponding course will be displayed to the user. There should be a facility that student can get a print of timetable. Then student will be given some student ID. He then has to set the password for this ID. If a user wants to find the particular student, then they will put the student ID and get the complete information of him. User interface design pattern. For example, progress indicator. We found this type of pattern in any installation program. By this pattern, user gets a feel that some process is progressing continuously behind the screen. Wizard. This pattern serves as a guideline for completion of tasks through various windows. Shopping cart. It is typically used in online purchasing system. It provides the list of items that can be purchased. Design issues. In this video, we are going to see about design issues. There are 4 important interface design issues: system response time, help facilities, error handling, menu and command labeling. System response time. Response time is the amount of time taken by the system to respond from the point at which user performs some control action. Help facilities. This is the most essential criteria for any user interface. This makes the system more interactive. This can be online help or it can be in the form of user manual. Error handling. Errors and warning cause the frustrations to the user. Sometimes the error messages are in very vague form. Menu and command labeling. There are typically 2 ways by which the user handles the system. The system can be handled using commands by the power user, whereas any ordinary user makes use of GUI. Uses of GUI environment in design of user interface. Fast and intuitive interaction is possible. There is a lot of flexibility in operation. Casual user can handle the system comfortably. Powerful and meaningful representation of the software system is possible. Misuses of GUI environment in design of user interface. Developing such interface is very complex. It may appear slow to the experienced users. A lot of memory space may be required for various screens. It will appear meaningless if the user choices do not match with existing fields that are present on the GUI. External and internal interface design. In this video, we are going to see about external and internal interface design. External interface design. External interface design contains a detailed description of all inputs into and outputs from the software system. It complements the interface descriptions but does not repeat information there. It contains both content and format as follows. Name of item. Description of purpose. Source of input or destination of output. Valid range, accuracy and/or tolerance. Unit of measure. Timing. Relationships to other inputs or outputs. Screen formats or organization. Window formats or organization. Data formats. Command formats. End message. Internal interface design. The internal interface definition establishes policies for subsequent development in the software design. It provides a way for abstracting common operations so that problems during detailed design can be reasoned in terms of these interfaces, which provides a higher level of abstraction for specifying rules that apply to a larger set of entities that rely on them. In OO systems, UML can be used to create interface designs using class diagrams that include the interface stereotype in the name section of the class. Principles of internal design. The principles of internal design are the open and closed principle, that is OCP, the Liskov substitution principle, that is LSP, the integration segregation principle, that is ISP, open-closed principle, that is OCP. The OCP is an essential principle for creating reusable detailed design. It promotes design that allow changes to be made by extension of design rather than by modification of existing code. The main idea behind the OCP is that code that works should remain untouched and that new additions incorporated to address new concerns should be extensions of the original work. The Liskov substitution principle, LSP. The LSP serves as basis for creating designs that allow clients that use derived classes are maintained, but also that the subtype specification supports reasoning based on the supertype specification. Integration segregation principle, ISP. Well-designed classes should have one reason to change. When this concept is violated, there is strong indication that the interfaces provided by these classes are providing more information than they should, which make the designs harder to maintain and reuse. Evaluation of user interface. In this video, we are going to see about evaluation of user interface. The implementation phase of user interface includes creation of prototype that enables users to evaluate the usage scenarios. This evaluation is necessary to determine whether the created interface satisfies user demands or not. After evaluating the usage scenario, the user immediately submits his comments to the designer. The designer then makes corresponding modifications in the interface, and then again it is submitted to further evaluation. This design evaluation of user interface is an iterative process. After creation of first prototype, it is evaluated by the user. The evaluation made by the user is then submitted to the designer, who then makes necessary changes in the interface and builds the next prototype. This process is repeatedly performed until the user gets satisfied completely and no further modifications are necessary in the interface. Thus, prototype approach proves to be effective for design evaluation. Evaluation of quality system. Quality systems have rapidly evolved over the 6 decades. Prior to World War II, the usual method to produce quality products was to inspect the finished products to eliminate defective products. Quality controls. Quality control (QC) focuses not only on detecting the defective products and eliminating them, but also on determining the causes behind the defects so that the product rejection rate can be reduced. Thus, QC aims to correcting the causes of errors or not just rejecting the defective products. The next breakthrough in quality systems was the development of the quality assurance, that is QA principles. Interaction diagram. In this video, we are going to see about interaction diagram. When a user invokes one of the functions supported by a system, the required behavior is realized through the interaction of several objects in the system. Interaction diagram, as their name itself implies, are models that describes how groups of objects interact among themselves through message passing to realize some behavior. Typically, each interaction diagram realizes the behavior of a single use case. Sequence diagram. A sequence diagram shows interaction among objects as a two-dimensional chart. The chart is read from top to bottom. The objects participating in the interaction are shown at the top of the chart as boxes attached to a vertical dashed line. Inside the box, the name of the object is written with a colon separating it from the name of the class, and both the name of the objects and the class are underlined. Example: book represents any arbitrary instance of the book class. Collaboration diagram. The collaboration diagram shows both structural and behavioral aspects explicitly. Information display presentation. Information presentation is concerned with presenting system information to system users. The information may be presented directly or may be transformed in some way for presentation. The model view controller approach is a way of supporting multiple presentations of data.